children of Aharon are Kohanim. No, it's not that. It's not. The Torah is not informing us anew that the Kohanim are related to Aharon and Kohen. But rather, what we initially discussed is that we have two attributes to ourselves. We have our essential aspect, and we have our descriptive aspects. We have our attributes. So we have our job, and we have who we are as a person. So Kohen is a job. But to be a Kohen, if you're a Kohen, it means that you are a Ben Aharon, which is your identity. That's what you are. You're the tiny seed of Aharon that came from his brain and was just nothing in his brain and turned into a whole human being. Nothing's all right. If we want to appreciate the existence of something from nothing, which is really sort of unimaginable, there's this sort of constant kick the can down the road game with physicists. It seems to be that they're always finding some new way from which something came from nothing. But then when we get into what nothing means, then it refers to like some kind of a quantum foam or some sort of a vacuum, and then the vacuum is not nothing. A vacuum is a vacuum. So yeah, we can talk about it. So it's not much nothing now, is it? So it's impossible to conceive in the human mind what something from nothing comes from. But so Reb Nosson Zal says that if we think about something from something and how amazing that is, and then think that already, and then something incalculably beyond that would be something from nothing, right? The difference between 0 and 1 is completely incomparable to the difference between 1 and 10 billion. It's a completely different category. It's like the difference between standing still and walking slowly is incomparably different between, it's categorically different than the difference in walking and running downhill really fast. So we can't even imagine that. What we can think is that a tiny seed that starts off even smaller than that, hormones in the brain or something, that eventually will result in that seed being produced. So that little bit of something, which is a relative nothing, produces a whole human being, and that comes from Aharon. So the Kohen's whole existence is from Aharon. It's at the very core of their being. So when this pasuk says Emer el HaKohanim b'nei Aharon, the emphasis on b'nei Aharon is not really that Aharon is a Kohen, because when we're talking about what's special about Aharon, if you're talking about him in the context of the other Kohanim, there's nothing special about him. He's a Kohen, they're a Kohen. It's exactly the same thing. The difference is that he's the father of all Kohanim. So when we talk about the difference between Aharon and other Kohanim, it's not that he's a Kohen, it's that he's a father. So that's what's being emphasized here. Again, it touches on something more personal and less job description based. So us, the Kohanim, we're all the Kohanim, all here who are learning this Torah together, or even, it doesn't have to be from the context of this Torah. These lessons exist probably in other places. The basic underlying instruction of this being to pray with great emotional intensity, and while you're not doing that, to learn law. Particularly law is good for this. With great intellection, and then to bring those powerful brains to that powerful emotion, and they're going to mine new emotions that will result in new actions, result in a new world. You can't get a new world if you don't act different. You have to do different stuff, but emotions make you do different stuff. So if new emotions, you do new stuff, and that's how you make a new world, which many aspects of the world could use renewal. Hard to argue with that statement. So that's what the Kohanim access, is this level of Aharon, this the father, the level of Mishpat. So that resolves those couple of words, but in the grand context of the lesson, it's a difficult answer. If we're saying that the Kohanim, they draw from Aharon, this is from Mishpat, this is where they get these new emotions, and by going there and issuing rulings and such, as we've discussed, and then the people around them benefit from the existence of the drawing forth of these new emotions. It's unclear how Mishpat in any direct, explicable way affects the emotions of everyone in the world. And this is sort of a question that we've probably had since the beginning this idea was mentioned, is exactly how that works. And I don't think I've answered it thus far, but we'll try to today because it's coming up again. Maybe it hasn't been answered in this Torah. He wanted us to save it until we discussed Aharon and brought out that Aharon is the father in this. So, within this metaphor of Aharon being Mishpat, we can sort of see a more specific version of the problem. How does mishpat affect everybody who's not a Kohen, who doesn't actually go to mishpat? You can see how it would affect those who do the deep emotional prayer to get to that place with the brains, and they do it, and they go to that place. It's a place in your mind, or maybe it's actually a spiritual place, if there is a difference between those two ideas, something which I don't think any of us can fairly claim to know. Any which way, someone who doesn't go there, it's unclear how they're affected by it. But we have a better version of the question now. And the version is this. Let's say that the Kohanim are sort of like the rabbis. They're those who the public benefits from the novel insights that they bring that I just never would have thought of it that way, And then the Kohanim, or the rabbis in this case, they get it from somewhere. Let's say they get it from their dad. So I could see in a direct way how my rabbi's state of affairs would affect me, because that's how I'm receiving my novelty from. He's going deeper into mishpat than I, and ruling more intensely there, and drawing more intense novelty into the world, and that's why he's the rabbi and I'm the student. So I could say directly how his state of affairs would affect me, and I could say directly how his father's state of affairs, anybody can understand this, would affect him. That requires no explanation. And even I could say indirectly how his father's state of affairs affects him and my rabbi, and then my rabbi's state of affairs as a result of his father affects me. But it doesn't draw a direct line between the rabbi's father and the student. So this is a better, more specific, maybe more answerable version of the question: how exactly does this mystical place of mishpat affect those who do not visit it? So Rabbi Nachman is now going to bring a pasuk, and the reason that I've asked this weird question is because when Rabbi Nachman brings a pasuk, it doesn't do it for no reason. It doesn't do it for a light reason either. So it's coming to answer something. And we'll take a deeper look into the pasuk to see what it's coming to answer and how it answers. We only know now what the question is, but how it's going to answer that question. Pasuk says, "V'nasa Aharon eth mishpat b'nei Yisrael." V'nasa Aharon carried eth mishpat, the city of judgment that he's associated with, of b'nei Yisrael. Let's call that everybody who's not a Kohen in this case, the general population, right? In the grand metaphor. The Jews are supposed to be like the Kohanim of the world, and everybody else then, by extension, would be like sort of the Jews of the world, right? And so it's all in scale. I had a Kabalah teacher one time. We have Torah Arachim. We have a Torah of relativity. We can use 10 spheros at different levels to explain Partsufin, to explain this concept or that concept. Let's explain it with 3 spheros. Now, for more detail, let's explain it with 8 spheros. Whatever. So clearly, Rabbi Nachman is not merely saying that Aharon is Bekineth Mishpat, because here's a pasuk with the words Aharon and Mishpat in the pasuk, even though the pasuk does not imply that Aharon is like Mishpat, and if anything, it makes a distinction between them. Aharon carries Mishpat; they're different things. So Rabbi Nachman wants us to take a look at this pasuk clearly. Okay, so let's take a look at this pasuk with some of its surroundings. The pasuk before says, "V'nasa Aharon eth shemoth b'nei Yisrael." So this is a very similar idea, that Aharon carries the names of Bnei Israel. So let's say that's on the general public level, those who are being affected by the city of Mishpat, although we're not sure how. He carries their names. That corresponds to the lower level here. Hoshen and Mishpat, and he also carries the Hoshen and Mishpat. He also carries this Mishpat, this place where these new emotions come from that seems to be not directly connected to Bnei Israel. And he brings them before Hashem as a reminder, and he brings them in prayer. And so, the 2 themes here that are interesting, stand out here: Shemoth Aharon, because that's not what Rabbi Nachman said. He knew we'd see that. He brought Mishpat B'nai Israel, and then it's interesting. The pasuk immediately before, which surely you'd see if you looked it up, which we're doing now, says Shemoth B'nai Israel, and he pointed out to you the similarity in language. So clearly, Shemoth is significant, and within that clause, also Mishpat is significant. Okay, U'nethata el Hoshen Mishpat at the Urim v'Hatumim. Now he adds a special ingredient to it called Urim v'Tumim. Whatever that means, we'll get into that, but let's just say that's the added thing. And what is the result of adding this thing? Alev Aharon, and now on the heart of Aharon, B'va'u lifnei Hashem, when he comes before Hashem, Now he carries this unified thing called the mishpat of Bnei Israel. So if we analyze the prosody of the verse here, we see that first we have shemoth, that's the general public, it's just their names, and then we have mishpat, that's this lofty level of, in our metaphor, we're saying your rabbi's dad, however that directly impacts you. And what brings them together, and we can see, is the Urim and Tumim. So we have to understand now, what is the Urim and Tumim? At least as far as our concept is concerned. We're not going to get into how it's built and, did God make it like the Ramban says, or did humans make it like that? Even Azra says that we're not going to get into that so much. But as far as effects are a thing here. So let's look at a Rambam here where he mentions this. Okay, so the context here, the Rambam, he's talking about the future. It should be soon, but he's talking about sort of the final redemption of the world, where we'll have world peace, and that means the Jews can do our religion all the way, right? It's probably common knowledge that, given that we don't have a temple properly functioning, we're sort of doing really a very reduced, nearly paradoxical version of our religion. Like, we're doing the religion without doing the religion. We're so from, but that we can't do the religion. But one day we're going to have a temple because of world peace, right? If we had world peace, we could build a temple, and it wouldn't necessarily result in a war with our neighbors who will also like that patch of land. We could work it out if we have world peace. Okay, so this refers to a time like that. And he said, "B'mei HaMelech HaMashiach," in the days of the Messianic days, when the kingdom of Yehuda is brought back together as it ought to be, and all the Jews are all gathered, they're all going to be, their familial lineages will be restored to them. We used to know what tribes we came from, and then emperors from the countries north of us scattered us all over the globe, because that's a very common tactic for emperors to do, because it disorients people and makes so they can't revolt. They can't gather and revolt if they suddenly live in a completely different land and they don't know how to till the soil and things, because it's different. So that's basically how we lost our tribal lineages. And it has a very significant impact, because we don't know who the Kohanim are. Now, even though there's some thematic relations here about familial lineage and father and Kohanim, that's not the detail I'm going on, but what we should recognize here is within this conversation that there's a nafka mina. There is a practical outcome of the fact that our tribes are scrambled, and that is we don't know who the real Kohanim are. Then the great leader of that time is going to have special powers, and by the means of those powers, he will be able to assign everybody their true lineages. And then next it says he identifies with the Kohanim and the Leviim, but here's what I wanted to get to. Harehu Omer. Now the Rambam brings a pasuk to describe this time. That's, I believe, is from Ezra. Yomer Ha-Tirshatha Lahem. Ha-Tirshatha refers to a colleague of Ezra, the prophet Nehemiah. And Nehemiah, he made a difficult ruling. They were working for the king of Persia at the time, and the king of Persia liked to drink wine. I think these days they don't drink so much wine in Persia now. But those days they drank a lot of wine in Persia, the king especially. And so he hired Jews to work for him. And but he wanted to make sure they weren't going to poison him. It's according to one of the explanations in one of the books of explanations I have. It's not one of the more commonly known ones, but it's one I read. And they didn't want, he wanted to make sure they weren't poisoning him, so they had to drink the wine. The problem is, with them drinking the wine, that they were Kohanim. He liked to be served by Kohanim, because they're the holiest of the Jews, so he's a king, he deserves the best, right? The problem with Kohanim can't drink wine, though, because they may, if they're called for temple service, and we don't know when Mashiach might come, and maybe it'll happen like Rashi says, and the temple just fall out of the sky, and boom, okay, now you got to go to work now, and it's your shift. Oh, you're drunk? Well, that's a death penalty offense. If you go do your service at the Beit HaMikdash drunk, right? We have a direct pasuk. This is don't drink and go into the Mikdash so that we won't die. So Kohanim, and even to this day, there are Kohanim who are careful not to drink wine. They make kiddush on grape juice. Kohanim can't drink wine. It's a problem. So Tirshatha means he Tirshatha. He permitted them to drink in this trying situation, but only certain Kohanim. Only the ones so because the tribes were scrambled, he didn't know for certain who the Kohanim were, and that gave him a little bit of leeway to be lenient with these guys so that they didn't get executed by the Persian king for attempted espionage in his eyes. It was the Kohanim who did not have a tradition of eating truma, of eating the sacrificial offerings only the Kohanim were allowed to eat. These days, when you make bread, you separate your challah and you put it in a double bag and you put some rubbing alcohol in there and you throw it in the trash. Because you can't give it to anybody because we don't know who the Kohanim are. But those days, they did have some guys that had a family lineage of eating it, so they weren't permitted to drink wine. But the ones that were permitted to drink were the ones who we think were Kohanim, but we don't really know. We don't have a tradition of eating. We don't halachically behave like Kohanim, not in any of the traditions anyway. People hold the door for us. We get called up to the Torah. People don't ask us to hold the door. People give us pidyon ben. But that doesn't mean we eat truma, because that would be a really big problem. Someone who's not actually going to eat truma. So there was some room for leniency because of the ambiguity. And then it says later in the pasuk, Ad amod kohen leurim u'letumim. Until a kohen shall come who can once again wear the urim and tumim and actually get answers from it. And then we'll know who the real Kohanim are. And so then I won't be able to permit them to drink wine. That's the idea. But also when that happens, hopefully we won't be overrun by drunken Persian overlords. So keep in mind, it's interesting that the Rambam is using this pasuk here when we're talking about the third temple that should be built soon, but that pasuk was actually during the times of Ezra, which was like probably more like 2,000 years ago, somewhere ballpark, maybe more than that. Actually, I think more than that, because early Tanaim were in the temple for 420 years, the second temple, and we had Tanaim 2,000 years ago, so close to 2,600 years, a long time ago. And it still hasn't been built, in case you hadn't noticed, third temple. So he's making a statement about something that's very, very distant. By the way, this is we have many levels of magical perception. In the second temple times, they had Urim and Tumim, it didn't work. So he wasn't talking about the Urim and Tumim. We also didn't have Ruach HaKodesh, which the Urim and Tumim is one way to get Ruach HaKodesh. We had a Bath Kol, which was a degree of mystical perception wherein sometimes, if you're really holy, you can get a voice to call out from heaven. You can't do it reliably usually, but you get a voice to call out from heaven to give you an answer. But if you read the Talmud, the rabbis don't often like the answers that it says, so it's not a very lofty version of prophecy, relatively speaking. The next level up is Ruach HaKodesh, which allows you to correctly and reliably know things you shouldn't know, at least in the present, like what's this guy's family lineage. The guy standing in front of me, we didn't have DNA testing. That wouldn't actually be that helpful because a lot of this is paternal. You'd have to have an extremely sophisticated DNA test to isolate only male influence back many, many, many generations. This still would have been hundreds of years prior that they'd been scrambled. But then there's prophecy, full-on prophecy, which allows you to predict events thousands of years in the future. This is incomprehensible. This is incomprehensible to us these days. This is like trying to imagine something coming from nothing, not quantum foam, real nothing, not a vacuum, real nothing, whatever that means. So we can already see here sort of what the Urim and Tumim represent, this distant, far-off thing, which is thematically similar to sort of the rabbi's father. The rabbi, first of all, if I'm going to call somebody my rabbi, look, I'm a rabbi. He better be awesome. Otherwise, he's a smart guy, and I can bounce my ideas off him, and maybe, he'll like or dislike what I say, maybe I'll like or dislike what he says, and we can talk about it. Maybe he's a little beyond me, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to call him my rabbi. We have, another rabbi to call you rabbi, that's a serious rabbi. We have a distinction in levels of rabbinics in the laws of judges, wherein you can have a... it's not the laws of judges. I'm sorry. It's in the laws of sages and teachers, where you can have a student who's really like a peer. Like you guys can sit here and argue with each other. It's not, and it's different than a Rav Muvhak. A Rav Muvhak is someone who really I don't even have any idea how smart this guy is. It's completely beyond Seichel Na'olam. He has a completely hidden intellect in me. It's not he's smarter than me, and I know how much smarter he is, like that. So again, for me to call somebody rabbi like that, they're already going to be pretty awesome. Making the idea of their father, I can't even imagine what that would be like, right? Think about the most awesome person you can imagine, and now think about who is the people that. I mean, you can think about both their parents if you want to be egalitarian about it. It doesn't really affect the concept so much, but what produced this person? Where did this person come from? This starts to enter into the realm of the unimaginable, or at least the known unknown, right? I know it's in the haze of my mental periphery, but really can't access it. I can't picture it. It says in the Talmud you can picture an elephant flying through a needle, but you can't picture that without them changing sizes, right? So it would be something that you can talk. You can imagine that you can imagine an elephant flying through a needle without changing sizes. You can't actually do it. You can't imagine it. It's a right. What do you call it? It's like a logical impossibility. It's a rational impossibility, I think is what they call it. So now we can start to understand what mishpat represents. What is it that affects the random emotions that people get? So there is that which is outside of our perception. There is that which is within our perception, but then when we think, where did that come from? We enter this dark zone. It's not so far away it can't touch me. Clearly, my rabbi's father does have some impact on me, whether or not I can determine what that is. But it's also not so close that I can know what it is. So that's sort of scary and possibly exciting, but it really depends on what the contents of that place are. If I don't know what that place is, if nobody's telling me, if nobody's explaining, if I can't go there and look, if I can't if I don't put in the work to go there and look, like we've talked about, and affect things in a positive way, then it's terrifying. It may as well be overrun by goons. And my discomfort with the uncertain is not going to produce good, semi-random emotions in me. So what happens when we start revealing novelty, and especially helpful novelty, practicable novelty, like we've discussed a lot in these tours? There's usually almost always a takeaway, at least a takeaway that we can think about as we do the practical things that we've talked about doing, which we've talked about extensively in these classes, practical things, even though this is a more conceptual class right now. When we actually do this work of pulling forth these novel emotions, we start to shine a light into that place, and we show people that positive, helpful, powerfully helpful things can come from that place. And I'm not saying I'm going to draw one novelty down and now you're going to follow my system, like be a cult leader or something, because you can research those and those crash and burn. But I'm going to keep producing novelty. We're going to do it for 1,000 years. And we're going to make a type of person that can just do this and just produce these new ways of looking at things that they can do it on the spot usually. They've got a repository of these new ways of thinking about reality. It's not like a system that they worked on and now you can buy their system for ADC payments. It's just like they can do it on the spot. They can give it to you for free because it's not something that's contrived that they had to put into mass production and Starbucks it out. They can just do it on command and produce a perfect latte with their mind anywhere. Or what I'm saying by that is produce these novel findings anywhere. And what this does to people, besides for the helpful of the novelties themselves, or the help of the novelty themselves, is it shows them, the place from where a novelty comes, there is a lot of good in that place. And so even though I don't know what comes from that place always, because I can't go I can go there maybe not as deep as the rabbi, whoever I think is worthy of being called rabbi at my level, then to each for all of our levels. Well, that's very encouraging, and this is going to directly and very reasonably improve the quality of random emotions that we get.
Interesting about why the Kohanim could get away with that, how they let that out. I also found very interesting the beginning, just the whole idea of why even today what my rabbi does affects me. And my rabbi was real clergyman, so I haven't really found a replacement yet. I'm some quasi replacement.
Well, his the guy who runs downstairs is Rusa. Shimon doesn't speak English though.
I don't speak English. I davened here for the last year and a half, so I kind of know him, but
it was when COVID first struck. I was like, careful, but I wasn't particularly upset. And I knew people got COVID. People close to me got COVID. For some reason, I wasn't really upset. There's something about the rabbi that's like, this guy is the one who's leading into awesomeness. So if this guy gets hurt, then I'm in deep trouble, right? It's like if Superman's sick, oh man, right? And I remember that it was a guy. I don't really call him rabbi now. It was a guy who sent me on. He gave me a scholarship to go to yeshiva. When he got COVID, suddenly I felt it. I suddenly felt like upset about COVID.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I can only on a superficial level explain why. I think there's something to that call of Homer thing, right? If Superman gets sick, I'm in deep trouble. If Superman is doing great, we got it made. See, it's like
where's Superman when we need him now?
I know a guy who was getting a haircut when Lubavitcher Rebbe died. And he was in Crown Heights. And the barber gets up halfway through the haircut. He gets the ping on his pager that the Rebbe died. And he's like, this can't be. And he runs. He gets there. He runs down the street to 770. The guy's sitting there with half his hair.
Wow. Yeah.
770 just like, it's like the world stops spinning.
Yeah. All right, photo.
All right.
Baruch Hashem. The live feed is on. Live.
Baruch Hashem, we're alive.
Yep.
Baruch
I think
Hashem.
we haven't quite reached 100 million viewers yet, so we're probably okay. Good to see you.
Good to see you
Always
too.
Good to see you.
What happened to your finger?
I missed a step.
You should have seen what happened to the other guy, right?
I said to leave it on for 10 weeks.
Ah,
Never take it off. Not for the mikveh, not for nothing.
really?
It's like regrafting.
So mom's broke?
Didn't break. Tendons ripped apart. So they said we can do surgery, but it's just as long of a process. And then when you open something up, there's
Right,
Potential.
more issues.
more issues.
Doesn't pay.
But
Why? Does it hurt you now?
only when I laugh.
No, you showed.
No.
You're funny.
No, it doesn't really hurt. I mean, today it's hurting a little because I opened it. Like I made it straight. It's been sort of,
You have to do that? You're supposed to do that?
yeah, you have to keep it straight for 10 weeks. And do physical therapy, I guess, you know. Fortunately, I'm not a left-handed pitcher or something. It would have ruined my career. Okay. I said, when I bought the thing, I said, I didn't realize it was so big. I can't imagine, like, 10 weeks seems like a long time. You never know where you hear something. He goes, in the scheme of things, it's not really very long. Okay. Fine.
You know, and when you're talking about the entire, even, of our lifetime, that this is only like half of our lifetime because we have a Me'avesrim, but that 10 weeks from even half is not a lot compared to 60 years, So,
What a show.
it's not the Shem.
What a show.
I'm gonna, just to be sure, I'm gonna be doing that red button, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm just gonna look at something. It's good. Do you have a chumash here?
Is there a hummus in the house?
Yeah.
I mean, you'll probably recognize it
I'm looking.
better than myself. There's more also there.
It's okay if not a big deal.
I'm sure there's one downstairs and I can.
No, don't worry. No. It's all good. I see a schmoes. All good. It's all good. All good.
One would think.
No, Torah, come on. It's like for these big tzaddikim here, it's like nothing, So they know it by heart.
By the time they were 6. Okay.
It's all good. Don't worry. I'm fine. Let me just look over something. welcome everyone. Parshas Lech Lecha. Okay, we're going to be learning, Bezrat Hashem, the Musar and Kabalah, the fifth Musar and Kabalah, Ha'aretz Asher Reka Romez L'Shabbos. So it says in the base of Rom, it says that our Eka, that Hashem says in the beginning of the parsha, Hashem says, Lech Lecha, go, mi'artzecha, mi'maladecha, mi'beis avicha, el ha'aretz asher Eka, go for yourself to go from the place where you were born, from the place of your father's house, right? From your land, from the place you were born, from your father's house, to the land that I will show you. Which is obviously pretty interesting, without giving him a name, without giving him directions, just go. And I'm going to show it to you. So, the word areka, I will show you, okay, is the gematria, the base of Ram says, which is the grandfather of the Solomon Rebbe, I believe. It's a gematria, it's the numerical value of Shabbos. But if you look, it's hard to see right away, because our Eka is Aleph Resh Aleph Chaf Sofit. Okay, so the Aleph Resh Aleph is 202, and the Chaf is 20. However, the ending letters in gematria are more than the regular letters. So a regular Chaf is 20. A Chaf Sofit is actually 500. Okay? Same thing goes for the following one, which is Mem. Mem is 40, but the Mem Sofit is actually 600. Okay? And so on and so forth for the 5 ending letters of Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Pei, and then Chaf Sofit. Okay? So I did in the order of the Gemara. But anyway, so it's, if you have 500 for the Chaf, then it comes out exactly to the gematria of Shabbos. So what does that mean? Not only that, we see when it says our Eka, I will show you. We see later on in the parsha, it says Vayera Hashem al Avram, Vayivan Shem Mizbeach Hashem Lashem Hanir El Yelav. Hashem appeared to Avram. That Avram saw Hashem, but even Sham Mizbeach Hashem, and Avram built a Mizbeach for Hashem Hanir Elav, that appeared to him. So there's a lot of these words having to do with seeing Hashem, appearing, Hashem showing. It's all from the same shorish. Why is it so prevalent here? That's number one. First question we're going to ask. And also, we in the actual first the name of the parsha, Lech Lecha, go for yourself. It says in Rashi, what it says, go for yourself, go for you. Rashi explains that it's really talking about that for your benefit, for your enjoyment and for your benefit. So Avram Avinu was the type that needed to do something for his benefit. Is that really who Avram Avinu, our forefather, our first forefather, the one who started Judaism, that's what he was into, to get his benefit and his enjoyment? Hashem wanted him to do something. He didn't need any reward for it. That's what Avram was doing no matter what, even when he got seemingly a punishment. In one of his hardest tests of killing his son, he got up early in the morning to do it. So it seems like Avram needed some type of reward, which doesn't make sense. Also, we're going to see later on about our in davening. In davening, there's certain things in davening that says, like for instance, Hashem did not give Hashem your God. Lo nusato Hashem Elokeinu l'goy ha'rotzos la'oidev hasilim v'gam nuscha lo yishkna ha'olam. That Hashem did not give this, meaning the Shabbos, to the nations of the world and to the people that are worshiping idols, and He didn't give to the ones who are uncircumcised. It seems like redundant. If they're not Jews, then we know that they're probably, especially in those times, they weren't circumcised and they're worshiping idols, right? So why is it that the nusach of our tefillah, the text of our tefillah, has to say something that seems to be redundant? And also, the last thing we're going to ask for now is, why is it that we see in davening, in the evening davening of Leil Shabbos, right? We see it talks about Shvi'i, right? The seventh day. But it's not till the next day when it talks about Shabbos. It doesn't actually mention Shabbos until the next day. So why is that? And by the way, Shvi, it happens to be the only thing used from the beginning, from the creation of the world in the Torah, from the creation of the world up until the Exodus. After the Exodus, Shabbos is not used, not even once. And if you look in the Torah, it's used only after the Exodus, after Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we're going to hopefully answer all these questions. So let's start. So we see that our Eka, I will show you, is Shabbos. So why? What does that mean to us? What do we learn from this? So the first time that the Torah is mentioning that Avram was spoken to by Hashem, he is going ahead, Hashem is going ahead and showing him the way to come to the land. Which land? Obviously Eretz Israel. But we're not talking about just the physical, geographical land of Eretz Israel. We're talking about the Eretz Halyona, the upper sphere, the high land, meaning that the spiritual land of Eretz Israel, right? To be able to come to the epitome of the levels, to be able to see visions of Hashem. And the way to do that, we see the Ravid writes it down, that Ben Adam that a person should open his eyes and see the image of your Creator that is standing opposite you, right? And we see that later on also, that was we mentioned before, Vayira Hashem al Avram, Hashem appeared to Avram, Vayiven Sham Mizbeach Lashem, and that Avram Avinu built a Mizbeach for Hashem, Hanir Elav, that, as we mentioned before, that appeared to him. Wait a second. We know that he appeared to him. Why is the Torah? We know that the Torah does not use any extra letter even. Here we have two words, Hanir Elav, that appeared to him. We know that he appeared to him. Why is it that it's extra over? It seems seemingly extra. If Hashem in the pasuk says he appeared to him, he's now building a mizbeach, right? Why does it have to say that he appeared to him again? So the Nesiv Shalom answers that when Avraham Avinu was building the actual mizbeach, he built it according to his reference of how he saw Hashem. Meaning, he was seeing Hashem in such a level of our Eka, Shabbos, in the visions of God. So therefore, how did he get that? how did he merit this high level? When he came into the land. And when we say he came into the land, it's not just actual walking in with the feet, but it's actual the spiritual level of coming into the high land, as we mentioned before, that the spiritual land of Eretz Israel, not just the physical. And in order to do that, the way to do it properly is 3 different paths to take. Be'olam, shana, v'nefesh. In the world itself, in the time, and in the person, meaning place, time, and soul. What is the Ba'olam? What's the place? Obviously, Eretz Yisrael. But again, there's, a person can be in Eretz Yisrael and live his life just like he lives outside of Eretz Yisrael. So he has to take, this privilege that we have to be able to live in Eretz Yisrael, but take it to a higher level and bring it up to be able to really do it the proper way. And the living in the spiritual level, yes, the land of Eretz Yisrael is very holy, but it doesn't stay holy for every person just because he's there, standing there and not doing anything for it. He has to go ahead and has his own, actually, Eretz Yisrael is holy enough to be able to lift up a person on its own, but he's not going to be able to get that level if he doesn't do things on his own. So that's one. The actual going into Eretz Yisrael itself, that's Ba'olam, in the place. Okay? And we know that Nevuah, prophecy, only comes when a person, that the prophet is in Eretz Yisrael, as we know from the story of Yonah Navi. Shana, what is so that's Olam, that's the place. Okay? What about time? The time is Shabbos Kodesh, right? That it's hinted to in the word Areka, I will show you, which is the numerical value of Shabbos. Because through Shabbos, a Jew is able to come to a high level of visions of God. And Nefesh, how is it in the soul? How do we get to it in the soul? Through purifying our soul, that a Jew has to go ahead and separate himself from the pleasures of this world. So, now let's go back and look into the pasuk that we said. The first pasuk, it says, Lech lecha mi'artzecha mi'moladatecha mi'beis avicha. What does it mean, artzecha, from your land? Meaning from where he was before, in the simple meaning. But here, what we're saying is not only that, it's talking about mi'artzecha, from the artziot, the low physical level that you were in before. And from the place where you were born, and from the place of the house of your father, whatever you nurtured or from nature that you had there that was not 100% pure, totally disconnect from there. That is what it's talking about, to connect in the higher way to Hashem through Shabbos. Okay, and we also see in the Sefer Kadosh Ar Yitzchak, in this week's parsha, it says it's referring to in Shmos, where it says V'nigash Moshe levado, v'hem lo yugashu. It's in the beginning of Perek Chav Daled in Shmos, where it's talking about right before the giving of the Torah, that Moshe can go by himself, but the Zakanim can't go. They can't come close. Moshe can go close to Hashem, but they can't. Now, if it could just say V'nigash Moshe. Again, we have the same problem over here. Why does the Torah use the word levado, by himself? If it says Moshe can go close to Hashem and they can't, so obviously it's only Moshe. Why does it have to say Moshe alone can go? So according to this, how did Moshe go? He disconnected from all the other connections that he had that were physicalities. And he only connected with Hashem. In order to connect with Hashem, you have to totally disconnect from all the physical things. But, and therefore, anybody else that was connected to physical things can't go. Only Moshe. So now, remember the question we had of why does it Rashi Hakadosh, the Rav Shlomo Yitzchaki, he says in the commentary of Lech Lecha la'anoscha l'tavascha, for your enjoyment and for your benefit. Like, really? We see that Avraham Avinu doesn't need that? Why is it that the Torah is telling us that? And Rashi is explaining it. Rashi knows what he's saying. So, we know that Avraham Avinu does not need a promise of reward. So therefore, what does it mean over here? So in order to be able to get the true hana'ah, the true enjoyment and the true benefit, like the Mesilas Yesharim says, that the whole purpose of the creation is to be able to reach the level of enjoying with Hashem, Le'sanig al Hashem, that is the true enjoyment in life, right? That all the other enjoyments in life that we know, the pleasures in life are like nothing compared to it. And if we think that, come on, can that really be? Well, that only means because we haven't come to it yet to be able to realize it. So, and the way to do this is doing these three things. Eretz Yisrael, Shabbos Kodesh, Taras Nefesh. That we have to be in Eretz Yisrael in the way that we're supposed to, in this holy land. And Shabbos Kodesh, being in the holy day of Shabbos, and purifying our soul from the things of this world. So, and this works in levels, because the more that I purify myself, the more I can merit to feel the holiness of Eretz Yisrael and the holiness of Shabbos. Okay? So it's really in levels according to how I purify myself. And as we say in one of the first Zmira, Kol Makadesh Shvi, on Alel Shabbos, we say Kol Makadesh Shvi. It's in that Zmira, it says, Taharim Yirashuha, that the pured ones, those that purify themselves, they will inherit it. Okay? And this Kol Makadesh Shvi was actually written by someone named Moshe, but it was like about 800 years ago, I think. But they're not sure exactly what it was, who he was, but it's a very holy nigun. But one of the things that he says over there, that who's going to inherit it? The ones that are pure. So in the Torah Savos, going further, we say in the as we mentioned earlier, what does it mean that Hashem didn't give the Shabbos to the Goyim, to the nations of the world, of the lands? Those that are shkuim, why does the Torah have to say that? He only gave it to us, finished. But we can also be included in that, even though we are not Goye Aretz. How? Because if we are Shakua Ba'artzios, if we are totally invested in our physical world, right? And also, he didn't give this nachala, give this inheritance to the Ovdei Fasilim, to the ones who worship idols. Well, that seems obvious. However, what it's referring to is Ovdei Fasilim, the ones who work for the Psil, their image, meaning they work for their own selves, whatever they need for their own bodies. And then when it says in his rest, Hashem's rest, he didn't give the ones who are uncircumcised should not rest. They should not dwell there, right? What is that referring to? It's not referring to just a non-Jew, as we have mentioned before, because that would be redundant. It's referring to the ones that go after their pleasures, okay? Those that, we know the epitome of a man's pleasure is the sexual pleasures, and in the body pleasures, bodily pleasures. So therefore, that is reference to that, to the person who is uncircumcised, right? So it says, it doesn't say that he gave it to Bnei Yisrael only. It says, your nation, Yisrael, he gave it ba'ava, with love. So what does that mean? Because if you love Hashem, right? If you give over your love to Hashem, totally, that means that you leave behind all the connections that you have to materialistic things, right? Then and only then you're going to have to be able to you're going to be able to merit the feeling of holiness of Shabbos. Now, in the Zohar HaKadosh, the Zohar writes that Shabbos is a Yoma Denishmasa. It's a day for the soul. Okay? It's not a day for the body at all. Yes, we eat on Shabbos, and we have to eat on Shabbos. We're not allowed to fast on Shabbos, right? Only when Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos, right? So therefore, it's a for all our levels of our neshama, nefesh, ruach, and neshama, it is a holy soul day, as we say in Shabbos and Noyim and Neshamos, that Shabbos is the pleasure of the souls. Vashvi, and the seventh is the oneg, is the enjoyment of the ruchos. Be'eden and Nefashos, also we're both referring to soul, right? So in Kal Echsav, in the Rav Aaron Carlin's beautiful niggin and words. And it has nothing to do with our bodies at all, right? This is the highest level that we can get, okay? Because, and it says that Hashem blessed Shabbos from all the other days, right? Even the other Yom Tovim, the Shabbos is the highest, right? And now we can understand why is it that before Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, right? It doesn't mention the word Shabbos. It only mentions after it says Mitzrayim. Why? Because remember that Shabbos, the day of Shabbos, came complaining to Hashem when by the time of creation, that every day, Yom Rishon, which is Sunday, Yom Sheni, which is Monday, every day had its own its pair, but Shabbos didn't have its pair. Shabbos is the odd one out. So it came complaining to Hashem, and Hashem said that Bnei Yisrael yeh ben zuglecha, that the Bnei Yisrael, the Jews, will be your pair. That will be your mate, right? So with this we understand when it says that we're going to go ahead and we're going to separate ourselves from everything that is mundane, right? And we're going to go ahead and connect to Shabbos in such a way that anything that we had in the natural that might have been not pure from our birthplace, from our house of our fathers, from where we in our land, all that we totally take away, and we can go ahead and take from the lashon of the halacha. There's a law that, especially obviously in a place where there's an eruv, we can carry on Shabbos. However, we can't carry something that's muksa, right? So we have to go ahead and we have to check our pockets to make sure that there's nothing. How do we say that in Hebrew? Lemashmesh bebigdo, to check our clothing. That's what it means. But it could have said pockets, right? But that's the law. The Saba Kadosh Mislanim, his grandfather, the Nesiv Shalom's grandfather, he says that when we say Chayav Adam Mashmish Bigdo, that a person has to be feeling and touching and checking his clothing, we have to take that word Bigdo, which means clothing, his clothing, and turn it around a little bit there's another word, beged, or bagad, to be more correct, which means rebellion, okay? That he has to check his rebellion. That what I did from Yom Rishon through Yom Shishi, what I did for the first 6 days of the week, I have to totally check my rebellion, all the things that I rebelled against Hashem, to totally disconnect from them, and it's time to do tshuva and come into Shabbos pure. Okay? So that's the time that he has to go ahead and do tshuva and fix all the things that he messed up during the week. And then he can be able to have the merit to come to the Aretz Areka, Liros Maris Elokim, to come to the land of that Hashem will show, to be able to see the visions of Hashem. Now, that we know that the Shabbos itself is actually the midah, its attribute is love, okay? And it is because we are going ahead and we're totally giving over all our love for all the physicality and giving it over to Hashem, and totally shaking off all our things that we have that are not holy. And that's why we start Shabbos by saying Shir Hashirim, okay? It's in all Sidurim, but if we go to a Sephardi shul, you hear them, they say it out loud, okay? And the Shir Hashirim is the holiest of holy. And it's all about love between Hashem and Klal Yisrael. So that's what Shabbos is about. Now, just to end up, we say, Lech lecha me'artzecha mi'moladecha mi'beis avicha, go away from your land and from your birthplace and your father's place. That is we can go ahead and if we want to put in a nutshell what is Torah, in order to achieve Torah the proper way, is we have to go away from the bad and do the good that the Torah says, which is sur mira va'aseh tov, right? Go away from the bad, take away the bad and do good. So lech lecha mi'artzecha, go from your land and from your birthplace and your father's house, all those things that you were comfortable and you enjoyed that are all materialistic things, go away from that. That's sur mira. And then it says, go to the place where I will show you. That is aseh tov. That is the good that you should do. And now, to be able to understand why it says in the evening prayers we say Shvi, and then in the day prayers we say Shabbos, is because we're going up in levels of Shabbos. The beginning of Shabbos is very holy, but it's much holier when it gets to the day. And then the holiest part is the climax at Shalashudis, at nighttime, right before. It's the Rav of the Ravin. It's the highest time. It's the climax. Just like the holiest part of Yom Kippur is Ne'ilah, right? It's the last part. That is when we come to the climax. That's the highest part of the day, of any day. But Shabbos, we're talking about Shabbos here. So that's why the lashon of Shabbos comes only at the end, and that's why we say Yismach Moshe b'matnas chelko, that Moshe Rabbeinu should be happy with his portion, which is Shabbos. Right, and it starts mentioning Shemir Shabbos, Shem B'nei Yisrael Shabbos. That's what it's talking about, and therefore, when the Zohar Kodesh, now we can understand what it says: Shemar Balayla v'Zachar Bayom. Yes, we have to keep Shabbos throughout the, keeping Shabbos and remembering Shabbos is the negative to stay away from, and remembering is the things that we have to do, the positive for Shabbos, right? So Shomar Balayla, the Zohar Kodesh says that we should keep Shabbos at the night and remember during the day. What is that referring to? We have to keep Shabbos the whole time, not just nighttime, but it's referring to that the levels that we're going into Shabbos. We're coming into the Shabbos in the level of keeping, and then we're going on at a higher level of being able to remember Shabbos and doing for Shabbos, and that's the levels that we go in Shabbos. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we should always zocha to meet not only this Shabbos and every Shabbos, all of Klal Yisrael, to have the vision of the pleasure, enjoying the pleasure of Hashem on our special day that only we are allowed to have. And we Be'ezrat Hashem, when we do that, we'll see Mashiach b'tzidkenu b'mehir v'amenu. Amen. How do I see how long it was? Because I didn't look at the time when I started, but I think it was...
It's probably 40 minutes, but...
Oh, really? I went over, wow.
I think we started at 6:20.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. mean, I guess there's a way to look back. You'll see after when.
I thought it would be over here, but I guess I should have looked when it was still playing. Okay, it's okay. I'll
I'm
figure it
afraid
out.
to touch stuff.
What?
I'm afraid to touch
No,
stuff.
don't touch. Fine. It's all good.
Wow. I don't feel so good. I'm touching your hand now, but
What's the
I
matter?
don't know. I just maybe I haven't slept that well for a couple of days.
Me too.
Just a lot of things going on. Good stuff, but still,
Right.
we process a lot of things, so I just feel run down.
Yeah, I pushed myself last night. I borrowed somebody's car, and my nephew and niece were here. I've been begging my niece for years to go to Israel, go to Israel.
Oh.
And then finally I made I said, now you have a place.
Yeah.
Like, and she'd never been. She's in her 30s.
Uh-huh.
She just got married in January. She married somebody who also never been to Israel.
It's all 12, okay?
Okay? And finally they came to us, and they were here just for Shabbos. And I knew that, like, they were never in Tveria. This is their first time everything, right?
Right.
Everything first. So I said, I'm borrowing the car, and I went, and I took them to Tveria. I took them to Rambam, to Rav Akiva,
Oh, wow.
to the Ramchal, and
Yeah.
they saw the Canary. It was a nighttime, but it was so good. They went to Rash. I took them to Rashbi, and to Rav Yehuda Bar Ilai. So like they got Rav Akiva
Yeah.
and three or four of his students
Yeah.
that we had Torah from. It's
Right.
all from them,
Right.
you know. So Baruch Hashem. So they got to go, and on Thursday they were in Hebron.
Oh, wow.
So they were in Yerushalayim. They were in all four holy cities within a period of 4 days, you know. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
So I haven't been in Hebron since 1970. So I really got to go back. I have to.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I have to go. I don't know when, but I have to go. I really want to see our fathers.
Yeah, when I first came to
The
Israel,
mamas and the papas.
I lived in Jerusalem. My wife and I used to go there.
Oh, it's much closer. Yeah.
Often. We would just take
Oh, really?
the bus from the special bus from the Jerusalem bus station.
Hmm.
So, yeah, we spent many times going there.
You went for Shabbos also?
No,
Just
go for the
back
day.
and forth for the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. I think it was quieter times then also. But
The-
between 10 and 15 years ago, it was like,
Well, they say now that since the war started, there's a lot more soldiers there. So it could be even safer.
could be, and they're building there. I was reading about that. They're really like, it looks like new houses and
Oh, really?
things, like people are moving there.
Get the Arabs out of there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
We need a clean land.
yeah, especially in places like that.
Right. It's so interesting that the two places that are clear that not only, like, the land was given to us, right? But Avram Avinu paid so much money for Hebron, so like beyond the price,
Yeah.
right? David HaMelech paid so much money for Yerushalayim. He didn't have to pay for it, but he paid, right?
Yeah,
And those are the two places that are the most, you know, it's a show that Hashem is, I think Hashem is showing us that you think it's your land. No, you have to wait till Gula. It's not Gula yet, you know, so we have to.
right. But we also have to step up to the plate, do our part.
Of course, 100%.
Not that we're necessarily in charge here. I mean, a
Yeah,
small
but
bit.
we have our own things that we have to do, to come and,
Well, that's what you were just talking about.
right,
That we have to.
step up to the plate, like you said. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. I think the main thing that we have to do, more than what I was just talking about, is what Hashem really wants is that His children should get along. We should love each other. You know,
Yes. Yep.
'Cause I think that will bring Mashiach quick.
Yes.
With Hashem.
All right. I love you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It starts with us.
Yeah, B'ezrat Hashem.
Okay.
It's always good to see you.
Also you.
Feel good. For
Thank you.
Shalema. You had vitamin C?
Yeah.
Good. Take vitamin C.
Okay.
Take a hot drink and go to sleep.
All right. Seriously.
Sleep well.
Yeah. Okay. importance of individualized Torah study and what happens if I don't individualize my Torah study. We left off last week with from the words of Shlomo Karlach talking about, yes, I have to follow every word of the Torah, the 613 laws, but then there is something which only I can do. Hashem has chosen me to do something very special. And that comes from the Soul of Hanukkah, page 41. In a nutshell, the Ishbitzer, who was one of the early 1800 Hasidic Rebbes, who started his own dynasty. There's a light which lights up the path, but every person needs a candle for each step of the way. So again, what's so important about having individualized Torah study? In this vein, Chazal teaches us that while Torah study is the essential life force of a Jew's spirituality, Ein Adam Lomed Ela B'Makom Shelibo Chafetz. What work a person can only truly connect to Torah that his heart is drawn toward. Wow. What works for one may not work for another. What worked for a Rebbe may not work for a student, because although all of Torah is equally accessible to every Jew, each soul is particularly connected to a specific portion of Torah. As one grows in spiritual maturity and becomes more attuned to the yearnings of his soul, he must search for the specific area of Torah that feeds a personal flame of connection, whether it be new vistas of Agadah, Hassidut, Musar, Machshava, or areas of Halacha that are not as widely studied. Becoming the best me requires that I stop attempting to impersonate the Avodah of others and finally follow the influences of my very own soul. Makes me think of, following the God of my understanding. So what happens if the alternative? If I continue to force myself to engage in Torah study that is not fitting for my Shoresh Neshama, I risk growing frustrated and losing desire for Torah entirely. Hashem should save us. In the words of Rob Cook, there are those who went in a bad way because, in their path of study and attainment of completion, they rebelled against their personal, unique nature. One person may be primed for the study of Agadah, and matters of Halacha are not in accordance with his nature, that he should busy himself with them consistently. And because he doesn't recognize or value his special aptitude, he delves into the study of Halacha, as is the accepted way, and he feels within his soul an aversion to these matters, because his immersion in them is not in accordance with the nature of his personal propensity. If, however, he would discover his purpose and fulfill it by constantly involving himself with this portion of Torah, which fits his soul's nature, he would immediately understand that the aversion he felt when he was studying Halakha did not come about because of an inherent lack in these holy and necessary studies, but rather because his soul was seeking involvement in a different area of Torah. Hence, step 11, to improve our conscious contact with our higher power through prayer and meditation. Follow our own path. Then he would remain faithful to the holiness of Torah in an elevated manner, performing acts of valor in the area of Torah which is pertinent to him, and helping those whose hands are mighty in Halacha by granting them a taste of the sweetness of Agadah. However, this is Agadah, is someone calls stories. However, since he does not realize the source for this feeling of aversion to his study and continues to negate his nature, when some way of freedom opens before him, he immediately escapes and becomes a foe and a stranger to Torah and Emunah. This is from Oros HaTorah, chapter 9, verse 6. Most likely we all know people like this that grew up in the world of yeshiva and seminary, and they reached the age where they didn't have to go anymore, and they stopped. Not all of them threw off all of Yiddishkeit, but they threw off the yoke of Torah. They threw off the way of the orthodoxy and the following the Torah in the traditional manner. In another place, Rav Kook writes, "V'ani besoch hagalah, ve'ani besoch hagulah, and I am in the depths of Eskil." That coming from Ehiskel 1:1. This refers to the inner essential I, whether individual or collective, and the world continues descending into the destruction of every I, both individual and collective. Expert teachers come and focus on the superficial. They too distract the students' awareness from the I. They add straw to the fire, give vinegar to the thirsty, and fill minds and hearts with everything that is impersonal to them. Little by little, the I becomes forgotten, and when there is no I, there is no He. That's a way of referring to Hashem directly, He. And how much more so is there no You? Another way of addressing Hashem directly. And this comes from Oros HaKodesh, 3 pages 140 to 141. The Spiritual Revolution of Rav Kook, pages 12 to 13, where we'll find the quote. So, over the past few decades, a phenomenon has emerged, which some have recently gone so far as to brand a crisis. This phenomenon involves yeshiva students who studied Torah with great diligence for many years, who lose touch with their Yiddishkeit when it comes time to leave the Beth Midrash and head out into the world of marriage, parenthood, and parnassah, making a living. A similar iteration of this crisis applies to current yeshiva students who, during Bein HaZemanim, or on a day when the Maggid Shiur is absent, in other words, the days during the holidays or just whenever they can, there's a substitute teacher, they feel no urge to open a sefer or consciously engage with Yiddishkeit in any manner, as soon as they don't have to. Although many explanations have been given for this, Rav Kook goes straight to the root of the problem without any stops along the way. Here the tzaddik teaches that this problem derives from a student's lack of engagement with his personal portion in Limud HaTorah, in the study of Torah, and Avodas Hashem, the service of Hashem. When one never gets in touch with the singular area of Torah study that touches the very core of his soul, he feels no intrinsic draw toward the studies in yeshiva, even if he is the biggest lamdan, the best student. Therefore, the moment the framework of yeshiva schedule falls away and the student no longer feels compelled by an external power to learn, he abandons it completely. And it's only a matter of time before tefillah and yiras shamayim follow suit. The sudden collapse of the student's commitment to Yiddishkeit is caused not by a traumatic experience or a theological crisis, as one might think, and as many of the ways of addressing the problem seem to focus on, but by a purely external and practical modification in his life. Everything that relates to the essential nature of his relationship with Judaism is exactly the same as it was yesterday. The fact that an external change like the arrival of Bein HaZemanim or pursuing a parnassah can have such a devastating effect on one's relationship with Avodas Hashem demonstrates that even his apparent devotion of the past was incredibly weak, never coming close to touching the innermost point of his life. In the words of Rav Yitzchak Hutner, it is entirely possible for one to learn with diligence in yeshiva, and yet, based on that, one still cannot evince the person's relationship with Torah. From Pachad Yitzchak, Igros U Kesavim 112. Wow. On the other side of the coin, those who manage to make Yiddishkeit their own, even while still within the framework of the yeshiva's general guidelines, working on tefillah and emunah, and seeking their own portion in Torah study in their free time, experience little change during Bein HaZemanim, or when it comes time to leave the yeshiva and support their families in accordance with the will of Hashem. Such spiritual seekers experience no crisis at all. Everything continues as it always had, because the relationship to Yiddishkeit is part and parcel of their very being, dependent upon no external factor, and is recognized as encompassing and retaining relevance to every area of life. I relate to that in the sense that what connected me to my higher power yesterday is not enough for today. I need to find what is unique, what is my unique drive today, just like in the days when I would use or follow the calls of my addictive leanings, my addictions. I needed more, always more, because I built up a tolerance to what worked before. A chassid once complained to the holy Ritzener, "During the hours I study Torah in the base of Midrash, I experience light and clarity, but the moment I start studying, it's all gone. What should I do?" The tzaddik replied with the following analogy, and I'll close with this for today. When a man walks through a dark forest at night and is joined by a comrade with a lantern in hand, his path is illuminated until they reach a crossroads. Then he must continue on his own, groping in the dark to find the way. However, when a man carries a lantern of his own, he never needs to fear the darkness. May we all merit such.